All right, today we're diving into a real-life historical mystery. We're on the hunt for a kingdom that was a major world power for almost 200 years, and then, poof, it just vanished. I mean, so completely that for the next 5 centuries, people basically thought it was just a myth.
Seriously, how does that even happen? We're not talking about a small village here. This was a powerful, thriving empire with its own unique language, its own culture, its own kings, and yet somehow it was just wiped clean off the map. 500 years. Think about that. For half a millennium, this kingdom of Saw was nothing more than a ghost story. Just a rumor of some civilization that was completely and totally lost to history.
So who exactly were these people? Well, the kingdom of Xia was founded by the Dongxiang people. And from 1038 to 1227, they were a serious power, a major player right alongside China's famous Song dynasty. But then, in 1227, it all came crashing down. The Mongol invasion was so legendarily thorough that they didn't just conquer the Xia, they erased them. And that's when the long silence began.
Okay, so this is where our detective story really begins. We are going to follow the clues, we're going to meet the people who cracked the case, and piece together this absolutely incredible puzzle of how a forgotten empire was brought back into the light.
And this timeline, wow, it really shows you the sheer scale of the silence. So the kingdom falls in 1227. Marco Polo, he passes through not long after. And then just a huge gaping void in the historical record, nothing. Until the first real clue finally surfaces in 1804.
And for all those centuries, this was it. This was the one single breadcrumb left for future historians. Marco Polo passes through. He jots down that the Mongolians called this place Tangut. He saw a land that was clearly devastated by war. He mentioned some cool white camel fur, but that's all we got. The only evidence of an empire that lasted almost 190 years was a single name in a travel journal. That's just wild. But that 500-year silence was finally broken. And get this, it wasn't by some huge team of archaeologists, but by one single, incredibly curious scholar. So let's meet our first historical detective, a man named Zhang Shu.
Okay, so picture this. The year is 1804, and Zhang Shu is working in the exact same area Marco Polo had described centuries earlier. He's at a local temple, and he finds this gazebo that's been totally bricked up, completely sealed shut. Of course, the locals warn him, right? Don't open that. It's cursed. But hey, Zhang Shu was a historian. Curiosity's kind of in the job description. So, naturally, he had the wall torn down. And inside, no curse, just a stone tablet. But this tablet, this was the first huge breakthrough. See, one side had Chinese characters he could read, no problem. The other side, though, was covered in a script that nobody had ever seen before. A completely lost language. Now, Zhang Shu was a smart guy. He couldn't read the mystery script, but he found a little golden nugget in the Chinese text, an era name, Tianyu Min An. And this was the key.
And this is where you can almost see the aha moment happening. He races back to the official Chinese historical records, and that name, Tianyu Mianan, it just wasn't there. It didn't belong to any known emperor. So he digs deeper, and he finds this obscure passage that mentions a kingdom to the west called Sha. And get this, it said their 4th king used that exact era name. Boom, it all clicked. The Sha from the records and the Tenget from Marco Polo's diary, they were the same forgotten kingdom. He'd just given the ghost its name back.
So Zhang Shu had proven the kingdom was real, which is amazing. But its language, that was still a complete mystery. It would take another 100 years and one very, very determined Russian explorer to finally give the Xia people their voice back.
All right, fast forward to 1908. Now we've got this Russian explorer, Pyotr Kozlov, and he is on a mission. He wants to find Karakoto, this legendary lost city that was supposedly swallowed by the desert and rumored to be full of treasure. Now, he wasn't the first to try, but he succeeded where others had failed. He actually found this incredible city half buried in the sand. And inside a tower there, he found a treasure trove that was way better than gold. I mean, we're talking thousands of books, ancient manuscripts, all written in that same lost script from the stone tablet. And among all of that, he found the jackpot, the one thing that could change everything, a Mandarin to Shad dictionary. You guessed it, this dictionary was their Rosetta Stone. This was the key that finally unlocked the language of the Lost Kingdom. For the very first time, scholars could actually read the words of the Xia people themselves and understand their history directly from the source. The ghost was finally starting to speak.
Okay, so the language was cracked, a lost city was found, but there was still one huge piece of the puzzle missing, the very heart of the empire itself, the final resting place of its kings.
And this last chapter, this brings us right into the modern era. So in 1937, a pilot is flying over the area and spots these strange, almost pyramid-like mounds on the ground. Decades go by. Then in 1972, Chinese archaeologists finally go to investigate. And what do they find? Stone tablets with those now familiar Xia characters on them. Mystery solved.
Yep, these mounds were the royal tombs of the Xia kings. This was it, the final piece. The full picture was finally complete. This discovery gave the empire a physical body, a tangible place on the map, completing a puzzle that had taken centuries and a series of brilliant historical detectives to solve.
What an absolutely incredible journey, right? From a single name and a diary to a whole rediscovered kingdom with its own language, its own cities, its own tombs. The story of the Shan is just this amazing reminder that history isn't always neatly written down in books for us. Sometimes you have to literally dig it out of the sand. And it really makes you wonder, what other lost worlds are still out there just waiting for someone to find that very first clue?